Hello and welcome to this video, and in this video I'm going to be comparing the all new for 2025 MSR SWITCH Stove system to the tried and tested JETBOIL, in this case the Zip, though it's comparable to the Flash, and the budget option, the FIREMAPLE Fixed Star X3, all while drinking a can of Hobgoblin Session IPA. Now, since this is an all-new stove, I'd like to give you the specs on this, and then we're going to go into detailed comparisons between the three, including boil efficiency tests. I've got 3 canisters, all exactly the same weight, bar a couple of grams. I've weighed them beforehand. I've got a stopwatch and my scales, and we'll talk about gas efficiency and some of the ability to cook with other pan systems and not fry your food to the same density as the inside of a store. But it's Friday night. Cheers. Not bad. Now, on the box here, the MSR SWITCH says it's time to switch to the most versatile high-performance stove system in its class. Now, from a lot of manufacturers, I'd be saying, yeah, what a load of marketing baloney. But MSR are different. They are highly respected, and when they bring a product out, we need to sit up and listen. They're claiming it's got switching versatility, it's got some new components that are fairly innovative, and from an aesthetic point of view, I think it looks pretty funky. This non-slip when wet cork outer is pretty smart, and it's pretty compact overall. Let's check the weight. So all told there with the cup, that is 395 grams. It's listed here as 392, so let's take that as read. Now, I've used this on a recent wild camp and I got on well with it. I boiled water and I cooked food in it, and I'll show you how that worked. So the things I've really liked about it so far is this inbuilt siliconized handle that just folds out the way. It's pretty easy to use. I like the cork grip, although what I don't like is it's not super deep, so you've got to make sure you get your hand right on there. The cup fits on there quite nicely. That's got measurements inside. And the other thing I really liked was the lid goes on pretty snugly. It's got a little bit of flexibility to it, and it's transparent as well, so you can look through the top, and you can place that on and off there without kind of like too much grief. So it's firm without being ridiculous like a lot of the JETBOILs. So otherwise inside you've got this pretty unique stove base system. I'll show you how that works in a second. You've got the burner unit itself, and I'm led to believe this is exactly the same as the MSR Pocket Rocket 2, and that's much beloved by many people. As you can see there, it's got a piezo, and I think they call it switch because it's got these little flip out legs. So instead of having to carry a separate adapter on the top, you've got that all ready to go. It's got that gorgeous MSR red colorway. Now, the pot itself comes with a cloth inside, but the unique feature is that it's got this hemispherical base at the bottom, and that's claimed to spread out the heat, but I found it really good for cooking real food. Now, ignore this here, I accidentally put it down in some sheep droppings that were stuck to it and put it on the burner, and that kind of set fire there. But that's one of the hazards of wild camping, but it looks used, doesn't it? That's fine. Yeah, so it's worked pretty well. So these currently at max retail are about £135. Whether that's competitive is kind of like up to you. So let's compare some of the other stove systems. Now the JETBOIL, the current model of Flash, is 371 grams. This is an adapted coke base because the base has been lost. The important difference with the JETBOIL is it's got a heat exchanger on the bottom instead of that hemispherical base. The top, I've never found them to be quite that consistent really, and this is the burner inside. We're all familiar with these. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I know there's a latest generation of these, but I believe the burner is exactly the same. The way it clips on has changed slightly to a 3-prong system instead of 2, but there's a lot of similarities, and the canister base system remains very similar, and the latest JETBOIL Flash is £150, so more expensive than the MSR, both new for this year. Then the budget option, this is a slightly wider model. There is a taller Fixtor X2 as well. I'll put a link to some of the comparisons I've done, or the videos I've done on these, and that weighs 574 grams. I better check there's some gas inside this. It's got a slightly more complex system here. There's a little bracket here that takes that away, a rather large handle, and these are only $49.99. There's a pretty beefy attachment for a extra pan there. Yeah, and there's no gas inside there. This is a big burner unit, so evidently this is much heavier. It's wider inside, a little bit like the MICROMO, but I think for the purposes of this demonstration it's kind of like worthwhile. These piezo's on the top can be a little bit inconsistent. I found some problems with these, and I've used a lot of this type of stove, particularly with our scout group. That's where we've been using them, and they've been okay, but they're a kind of like heavier budget option. Still really good, but and good burners on them, but lower quality components. But if that's what you're looking for and you're on a budget, this is definitely a choice. So let's get them assembled. Now, having used the MSR base system on a wild camp, I found it a little bit fiddly to put on, but worthwhile in terms of its versatility, because this base is elasticated and you can kind of slide it round, and that works to really even things up on uneven ground. Since you've got that very wide base, that's kind of like somewhat offset by the fact that you just kind of like plonk this on top, but I really like that, and I found that to be okay. It's a narrow burner here with a narrow pan, but I've not had a problem with the instability of that. Now, the benefit is I've always found the JETBOILs is you've got to kind of like line up, and you're kind of fiddling around trying to find those lugs. You're perhaps near a hot burner, but just being able to place that on, to me, is a benefit. I quite like that, but if you've got to be careful that you're not going to tap that off. It's more stable when it's got water in, and this narrow base here, you could argue, is perhaps a bit less stable, and you've got to click that on. But that, when you're kind of cooking with it, perhaps it's the rubber gives it a bit of suspension. And this is what I mean about MSR, you know, they really think things out. So that's like a little suspension system. So if you hold that and you're stirring, it feels quite sturdy compared to something quite stiff, you know, like a damping system. What I'm going to do now is boil 500 milliliters of water on each of these. I've got it prepared. It's all at ambient temperature, which is about 9 degrees out here, and I'm going to weigh the gas before and after. It's the JETBOIL lit, it's the MSR lit. Oh, there's a FIREMAPLE lit. So let's turn that up. That on. That on. And start the stopwatch. There's definitely a good bit of action going on here at 2 minutes now. Okay, that's the JETBOIL away at 2:12. That's the MSR, has already gone at 2:16. Turn that off. There's the FIREMAPLE, a fairly close third at 2:46. Right, I'll let these cool for a second and then I'm going to reweigh them to find out how much gas they used. I think the MSR and the JETBOIL were pretty close, to be honest. The FIREMAPLE a little bit behind, and that's interesting that these were very closely matched, because of course the JETBOIL is using a heat exchanger and the MSR has just got this hemispherical shaped bottom that spreads the flame around. And incidentally, later on in the dark I'm going to show you some of the flame shapes. In terms of ease of use, that FIREMAPLE handle's nice and big, but of course it's big and it's heavy because of that. Handling hot water off the MSR here, that's fine to touch that, and the handles are really nice actually. That's a very solid feel, very easy to use. And then the JETBOIL, that feels quite warm. You know, that cork feels quite cool compared to this neoprene here. That feels pretty hot, like you'd want to be slightly ginger with that. And you know, that floppy handle with this stretched neoprene is pretty crap, whereas that feels really secure. So in terms of handling hot water safety, the Switch has got it there by a long way. Hope I've not burnt my new table. That wouldn't be good. Okay, interesting results before and after. The MSR on that boil, I might have been a little bit behind knocking it off, was 10 grams of fuel. The JETBOIL was 9 grams of fuel, and the FIREMAPLE, according to my measurements, used only 6 grams of fuel. Well done to the FIREMAPLE, but of course if you count the burner unit, you're carrying 80 grams more there. So the gas efficiency of the FIREMAPLE is being good, but the pan and the burner unit together are significantly heavier, definitely offsetting that gas efficiency, which is only 3 grams over a boil, whereas you've got kind of like, you know, 100 grams overall difference in equipment. So let's just check that actually. So that all together with the gas empty is 659. The MSR empty and no lid is 523. And the JETBOIL with no lid is 517. So you've got significantly more weight, unfortunately, with the FIREMAPLE, but it is a budget option. Now, I just wanted to show you a couple of more features with the Switch. So let's check out some more features. So the MSR ecosystem also has the wind burner series, and these all have the stabilizer rings on the bottom that help to protect from wind and help to make it a little bit more efficient. And something that MSR certainly aren't advertising is the fact that the Switch system fits exactly with the wind burner bases, and that is a lovely stable system on there. For a wide pan, that's not going to fall off at all, compared to this sort of system for the FIREMAPLE that's similar to the JETBOIL system. I'll just put a pan on there. Of course, you've got something slidey like you would any pan. So I really like that. So if you were invested in the wind burner system and you were considering the Switch, and you also have the skillet and or this 2.5 litre pan, you've got a very compatible system. And of course this will fit inside here with 1 or 2 other accessories. So this isn't a heat exchange system, but this metal does help to spread the heat a little in my experience when I've been using it. And these are beautiful quality, these things. They're pretty thin, but That's what you want for lightweight. But the way this clips on here with this little clip there and that clip there, it's super secure, so you could drain a whole lot of pasta off that without worrying about that lid coming off. Fantastic MSR quality and attention to detail. Now, of course, the switch will work with other types of pans as well, and unfortunately with this type of burner you're always going to get a significant hot spot in the middle. Just to show you what that looks like with the FIREMAPLE, similar sort of gig really, one hot spot in the middle. Now, for anybody that's tried cooking with this type of pan, you'll know fine well that despite your stirring with your spoon in here, you're generally going to burn stuff in these corners and on this flat in the middle. Now, something I've found with this hemispherical center of the switch system is, as long as you can keep stirring, it's really good for not burning. And I cooked a chili in this a couple of weeks ago with no ill effects. There's the dome at the bottom. Now, some people might argue, well, mate, if you keep stirring in a JETBOIL, you'll be absolutely fine, but it's still hard to get in those corners and have a consistent stir. So these aren't really recommended for cooking real food, but you know, from time to time we're going to want to do it, and I found it worked really, really well. Now that it's dark, we're going to have a look at flame shapes. This is the FIREMAPLE on the left, and we're going to look at controllability as well. That's them all on full power. Let's turn the FIREMAPLE down, see what we've got in terms of fine control there. That goes nice and low. Now the MSR. I would say the MSR is probably the noisiest of the lot. That does go very low. Let's see if we can get the FIREMAPLE a bit lower. Yeah, good controllability there. A bit of lack of feel there with the JETBOIL towards the end. Seem to be turning it a lot, and then no, gone out. So I know this is an older model with the JETBOIL. I don't know if the new ones are any better, but a bit lack of feel with the JETBOIL there. Hang on, where's the piezo? There. Okay, so not so good with controllability with the JETBOIL there. It seems a bit vague as you're turning it down. There's a lot of turning to be done, and nice, the longer bail on the MSR, so your hands away from the flame and the heat. That's good. Let's have a listen to the noise again. Not much difference between the MSR and the FIREMAPLE. I would say of the three, the JETBOIL is the quietest. In terms of ease of access to the piezo, the MSR is right next to the controller there, whereas the others you're feeling around for them, wondering where they are. So the MSR is very instinctive where you go to it. The JETBOIL one's around here somewhere, so that's a lot easier to light. Let's have one last look at these flames. Good, great from that. I love doing that in the dark. In summary, which would I buy? Now, this was previously sent to me by FIREMAPLE. This was kindly sent to me by MSR, and I've owned a JETBOIL for years. This is actually a friend of mine, Paul, who's loaned it to me for the purposes of this test. Thank you very much, Paul. But now, which would I buy? Now, if I was on an absolute budget, it would be the FIREMAPLE, the consistent performers, but it's not the one I would buy now. I would definitely go for the Switch, and I'm not a massive fan of this kind of tall canister style system. I really like my remote style stoves, and in particular from a low base perspective, I've had some really good results with the MSR Duo system. That's a remote canister stove with that wind burner style, and that's the style that I really like. But I'm definitely going to hang on to this Switch. I really like it. I've got the pocket rocket burner in the bottom there, and importantly, something I haven't mentioned yet, that this is a pressure regulated burner. So that means that in cold conditions and with low gas canisters, or the deadly combination of them both, this is going to be really efficient compared to the non-regulated burner of the JETBOIL. And also my research has shown that the latest JETBOILs are not pressure regulated, so this is going to give me better consistent performance all year round, and they're less money than the current JETBOIL flesh. I told you it's been a long week. If you've enjoyed this video, give us a like, or even better still, buy me a coffee. And previously I've used Buy Me a Coffee for fundraising for my Scout unit, but any Buy Me a Coffees from this video is going to buy me more beer, because that was my last can of hobgoblin and I would really appreciate it. So yes, I've just asked AI on Google, and the JETBOILs aren't pressure regulated. Nightmare. On the whole, the FIREMAPLE ones are. Thank you, AI. And of course the MSR Switch. So if you're going to buy one of these, get the Switch. If you're thinking of switching, switch to the Switch. Thanks for watching. This has been my unbiased review. As I say, I've been sent some of this kit, but it doesn't matter to me which one you buy. I'm being objective about it, and this I really like, and my use on a wild camp last weekend bore that out. So let me know in the comments what you think, and don't forget to like this video and definitely subscribe, and have a look at my other stove playlist, because there's absolutely loads on there as well, and quite a few exotic tests.